myself, my name is O, H to the O-V. I used to move snowflakes by the OC. I guess even back then you can call me CEO of the ROCO. Fresh out the frying pan into the fire. I be the music man's #1 supplier. Flying in a piece of paper bearing my name. Got the hottest chick in the game wearing my chain. That's right, O, not DOC, but similar to the letters. No one can do it better. You can blame Sean, but I ain't invented the game. I just rolled the dice trying to get some change. I done came through the block, but I ain't invented the game. Still alive, it's in my veins. Only God can check me. Only God can check me, so I'm gone.
Play it day one with Game Pass.
Start your
Fans, welcome to the Hoobazoo Racing, the Hoobazoo Radio Network, and welcome to Drafting the Circus program. My name is Frank Santarowski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk about everything racing. So, joining me right now, I have Levi. How you doing, Lee?
And it's just us.
Just us, yeah. So, the other gentleman you see on your screen is Keith Hayes, our producer. We thought we'd give him a little screen time because he's such a fine-looking guy. But it was our intent to have Camrie Caruso on with us. Unfortunately, she's down in Carolina. They're getting pounded with some storm activity. She is trying to get reconnected. We had her on before the show, but if we could get her back on, we will. But
actually, we could take a quick break because Richard has come in. So let's take a quick break so we can get Richard in here, and then you guys will come right back.
Okay, well, we'll take a quick break. Yeah, and I do apologize for the technical difficulty, but sometimes, the weather is what it is. So
Mother Nature rules.
So we'll take a quick break and let's get Richard in here, and we'll be right back, and then we'll wait for her to come in, and then we'll go again. Here we go.
Okay.
start your
Again, technical difficulties with the weather and the storms. Richard Uden is now in the house with us. So, Richard, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Yourself?
Oh, all right. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. It's just been a little bit of a stumble of a start to the show. We are still trying to get Camrie Caruso in. If we're not able to, again, a lot of storm activity where she's at down in the Carolinas. So we will reschedule with her. And I do apologize to you folks who tuned in to listen to her, but we got to talk to her a little bit before the show. And, she seemed like a very sharp and very interesting young lady. And, we'll get her back on another day. Until then, we'll just go over the topics from this week. I want to start off on a bit of sad news that I was made aware of a couple hours ago. That is that Lucy Foyt, the longtime wife of AJ Foyt, has passed away. So our condolences to the entire Foyt family. They were married for 68 years.
Cool.
I mean, that's pretty incredible. I mean, she's gonna be a strong woman to put up with AJ for that long, because he's a little cantankerous, and he's done
his best to write himself off in the past.
Yeah. So she's a very strong woman, and again, matriarch of the Foyt family. So they're in our thoughts and in our prayers, and rest in peace, Lucy Foyt. The racing world will miss you. Yeah. But let's move on. Let's talk about NHRA, Lee. We'll lead off with that. Hopefully we'll bring Camrie back in, but if not, let's just so where were we racing this past weekend?
We were out in Pomona, California for the Winter Nationals. Pomona is probably one of is the birthplace of drag racing. It's where Wally started the NHRA and really got the sport growing, was out there in Pomona. So kind of a big, it's one of our bigger races of the year. They're all big, but this weekend was probably one of the bigger ones. Big three classes this weekend was Top Fuel, Funny Car, and Pro Stock. Pro Stock motorcycles had the week off. I think they'll be back in 2 weeks for the side-by-side, they'll be, I think they're in Vegas for the 4 wide racing that we got going on out there. So that'll be fun. See the bikes back. But it was a good weekend. Lots of good stuff going on. Like I said, Camrie was supposed to be here. I was hoping to talk a little bit about her win last week in Arizona, because she got her first career win out there, which was a really good win. We talked about it last week. And then she made it to the semifinals this week, took out a bunch of big names, and hopefully was going to get a chance to talk to her. But we'll next time she's on, we'll see what we can get into. So,
all right. So who are the big winners over the Winter Nationals there?
So Pro Stock, we started there. Dallas Green, he ended up winning it over Matt Hartford in Pro Stock. And Dallas was actually the one that took out Camrie in the semifinals. And Dallas had a really good weekend. The run against Camrie, his reaction time, which is basically when the Christmas tree counts down, it's the 2 blues on top. Those are our staging lights, and then there's 3 yellows and a green. And the 3 yellows kind of come quick in order, and it's very fast. Oh, okay. Oh, sweet.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Start your
Welcome back.
Glad you could join us.
Again, congratulations on the win. And Lee, I want you to go ahead and take over there since you're our NHRA guy and you were able to invite Camrie on the show. So I don't want to dominate the interview. I've got some things I'll add in at the end there. And Richard, you're welcome
Sure.
to jump in if you have anything, but to have at it, Lee.
So Camrie, I do appreciate you being on the show. It's an honor to have you here. Last year, NHRA Rookie of the Year. This year, off to a banger of a start. You won in Phoenix. That was you couldn't have asked for a better win. And then this weekend, you made it to the semis. You had a very strong. You qualified number one in pro stock, and in semis you lost out to ended up being the race winner in Dallas Green to a 002 light, which is pretty quick. Overall, how do you think your weekend went out there in Pomona this weekend?
I think we had a good weekend as a team. The trophy still came back to the KD Titan stable, so it was good. We qualified number one. We had a strong running car, and it was a close race.
So this year's a little different. We have Mission in the Too Fast Too Tasty challenge. So you got to race, that's the top four drivers from Arizona. They kind of have like a little grudge match this week. How do you think you did there? And do you like the format? You think it's something that is good for the drag racing community?
I think that it's a cool thing. We're already there qualifying. We're already running all the qualifiers. So I think it's a cool little bonus that they added in, and it's definitely neat. That's kind of a little more excitement to qualifying. So I think it's an overall good program.
Yeah, I think it's it looks like it's a good thing. That I enjoy the fact that they're adding the points that you win from that challenge onto your so after the regular season is done and you move into the finals at the end of the year, they're taking those points and they're adding them on at that point. So it gives a little incentive.
That they only count before the countdown.
Oh, okay. So it's only before the countdown. Okay. And how was it having
many points things this year between the call out race, mission race, the championship points? So they definitely have their fair share of points to keep track of, but it is a little confusing to know which goes where.
That's what you got a crew chief for, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And so how was it having Papa Joe, your grandfather, in the pits this weekend? It was nice to see him on the starting line, kicking the legs up every time we went down the track. How was that for you?
He's awesome. I love having him around. He usually comes to every race. He's just if you've ever met him, like he's just the most positive, most awesome person you'd ever meet.
Awesome. So we'll talk about family. When you're looking at your racing career, who would you think are some of your obviously family, but who outside the family, who are some of your bigger influences in your racing network, so to say?
Honestly, my dad has a huge role in it. Greg Anderson has a really big, I look up to him and all of his accomplishments. So it's just, there's a whole lot of awesome people in the racing world, and there's a whole lot of people who have accomplished so much. So hopefully we can accomplish just as much as they did.
And longevity. So you're in pro stocks. You're a young racer moving up. Do you see yourself getting into the top fuel categories and the funny cars or the dragsters? Is that an ambition, or are you happy in pro stock?
Honestly, I love pro stock. If somebody offered me a ride in those, like, oh hey, it's free, okay, then I wouldn't have an opportunity to funding for it.
Yeah. And I particularly, I love all of NHRA and the drag racing. Obviously the nitro cars are the bad boys and the bad girls on the circuit. I call them the noisemakers because they're just so big. But when you look at pro stock, y'all's races are so tight. I mean, like I said, you and Dallas had a great little get up this weekend, and then last weekend when you won, I mean, you literally won by inches. And in nitro class, you don't normally see that because the nitro classes are pushing so close to the edge. But in pro stock, I mean, it's real racing, and that's what I enjoy about it. So
It's
what's
fun. Nitro classes are also really awesome to watch. Like, I'll watch them and stuff, but it's just different. So, I mean, if there was an opportunity, I would, but I wouldn't go find fun things for it.
yeah.
Like running
Understand.
class, and I'd really rather not be ran into.
Yeah. Yep. Richard, you got any questions for Camrie?
No, it's great to meet you. I mean, a bit of my background. I actually work for TRD down here in North Carolina, so I know a few of the Toyota guys on the drag racing scene. It's not something that I've had much involvement with yet, but if an opportunity ever arises, I'd love to do some work with them because I think you guys are absolutely crazy. You must be dropped on your head or something because there's no way on earth I would ever do what you guys do. It's the craziest thing in motorsport. It really is. Maybe the guys that do like the sidecar racing on the bikes are up there in your category of craziness in my mind, but fair play to you. You're way braver than I am to do what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I probably was dropped, honestly.
No, fair play to you.
Richard, did you have a question? Did you have a question in there or
why?
All right, I had a topic. I had a topic I wanted to touch on, and then that topic would be the role of women in motorsport. And we see more and more very fine female drivers, but not only drivers but mechanics and crew chiefs and engineers. And it seems like where years and years and years ago, well before you were born, it was just all a boys club. But it seems to me, right, from the outside looking in anyway, that the NHRA in particular has been the place where we've had female drivers that have found the highest level of success. And is that due to the fact that these series are just more open to it? Do you feel like you get a decent level of respect when you walk through the garage?
I honestly don't know a whole lot of other kinds of racing. So I really speak on other kinds, but no, people do not like you when you come into a pro class. They'll like you until you outrun them, and then they want nothing to do. So, I mean, there's definitely really awesome people in pro stock. I've made some really great friends along the way. Like my team weren't my teammates last year. They still treated me awesome. But my teammates this year, like Derek Kramer, like they're all really great guys, and they've been welcoming. But there are people who are not. But that's just part of it. No matter where you go, I feel like you're going to have people who don't like you.
Oh, but yeah, especially when you find a level of success, and it's the jealousy factor creeps in. So,
but honestly, that's almost more motivating to like, okay, well, you don't think I can do it? Well, watch me.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So,
yep. And I think that I saw that from you last week in Arizona. You just kind of, I mean, you just dominated. You didn't qualify number one. You crushed the race. And then to come back this week and qualify number one, and it pretty much, to me, that was kind of like it was a statement from you, like, hey, I'm here. Like, don't mess around.
Honestly, I just have the guys on the team. Everybody's doing their part. Everything's meshing well, and we just have a really good program right now, which I'm so thankful to be a part of it. But it is cool to watch the people who didn't think I could do it sit back and be like, "Oh wow, she's actually doing it."
Yeah, and you're very, very early in your career. You've got a lot of good years ahead of you. You got a lot of space for Wallies on your shelf. So, but I did want to touch on the safety in motorsport, and I've always applauded the NHRA for being the first national series to mandate the head and neck restraint, the Hans device. So I guess, do you feel like the cars? Have you ever had like a big wreck or sustained an injury or have you just been very lucky there?
I've actually been really lucky. I have not wrecked. But I think that safety is a huge thing, and my family has always taken it very seriously. Like I wear a 20 suit and I only have to wear a 15. So it's just things like that. And I think the head and neck restraint is a huge, I think that's silly if you don't wear it. Like it's available. Spend the $200 and wear it. It's
I
not
think
a
that,
big.
yeah. I
I mean,
honestly
in
feel
Toyota,
that
we
device
saw,
has saved more people than
yeah.
anything else. You know,
Yeah.
even since the seatbelt.
I mean,
Yeah.
with Toyota, we saw two wrecks this last weekend. I think out in Panama, didn't we? For
Yeah.
the funny
J.R.
cars,
Todd blew up.
blew up, and then had somebody decide to drive over the top of him, which was a little sketchy. But the safety is phenomenal in these cars these days, and
He's way better.
yeah.
But it definitely baffles me when people complain about having to buy safety gear. I'm like, you spent how much money on your car, your engine, and you don't want to wear a $200 neck restraint?
I was actually at a racing event this last weekend that Toyota were running, and one of the entrants had a hands device from 2006. And yeah, no, he had to go buy a new one pretty quickly. That wasn't approved.
Yeah. People are just, it blows my mind. I'm like, just spend the money. You spend
Exactly.
it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. You've
No,
only got
good
you've
to
only
see.
got one brain. Don't wreck it. So
Yeah.
so where are you off to now? You guys racing Easter Sunday, or you got a week off before you're back racing?
Again, after this, I'm actually going to celebrate my dad's birthday dinner with everybody, like literally right after this. And then we're off for this weekend, and we will be in Vegas the weekend after Easter.
Okay. And is there any particular event on the schedule that you're absolutely looking forward to? One of your favorite places to visit or race?
I like the Norwalk, Ohio National just because they have dollar ice cream.
Okay.
Norwalk is kind of a historic track for you because didn't you get your first top alcohol win there, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah.
So
There you go.
Ah.
So one of the things new this year and is Toyota, and I'm not pushing Toyota, but Toyota came out with
No, you can push it all you like. That's good with me. Keep pushing it. That's great.
They came out with the junior roadsters this year, which is it's because NHRA is the junior classes have basically been she might have jumped off there. Camrie raced the dragster series when she was younger. That's kind of where she cut her teeth, and then kind of worked her way up into super gas, pro mod, and then into pro stock. So so that was, and I was going to ask her if she had gotten a chance to see those cars yet during the Gator Nationals and what she had thought about them. So hopefully,
I know that the sales are very strong and the demand for them is very, very strong, and I think it's hit the target audience that we were looking for pretty squarely, and it's been fantastic, the interest in it, and as you were mentioning earlier with the the safety initiatives that have been involved in the sport these days, I think it opens up a whole new clientele or potential customers for things like this. Want to get the kids involved in motorsport and want to get involved in something that they can do relatively cheaply, because motorsport is not a cheap hobby, and
it's not.
These little junior dragsters are pretty viable entry level concept. So hopefully that's going to kick off later in the year with really strong demand.
Yeah, so I did some research on them this weekend, and it looks like the initial offering, I want to say it was like 125 chassis, and just the entry level chassis was, I think it was about $16K, which is, to get into drag racing, that's like dirt cheap. And I think the full blown car with all the safety things, all the because the junior cars, safety's paramount. That's what they go with. It's fun to get out and drive, but we got to make sure the kids are safe. And I think the fully souped up, all the safety devices that are on it, so you don't have to spend that extra money to put the safety stuff on, is around 18. So, heads off to Toyota for getting into that. I know you weren't here last week. We showed a clip of, Antron Brown running it in Texas, just blowing the doors off the thing and having a blast. So that was really cool to see. I think he topped out at like 97 something miles.
Yeah, they actually said that was a little too fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they restrict those cars. You can only go like 9.5, 9.4 to 9.9, I think is the window. If you go any faster than that, it's a DQ. If you go any slower, it's a DQ. So you've got like that half a second gap that you got to hit. So it really does make the racing competitive because you're down to tenths of a second and hundredths of a second. So, we talked about J.R. Todd and the safety thing. His wreck this weekend in round 1 on Sunday was just, if you haven't seen the clip of it, I don't think we have a clip of it today, but it was, that's why the NHRA does what they do, because his car just disintegrated. There was nothing left of the body after his accident. So basically what happened was, in the dragsters, in the funny cars, the engines are in front of the drivers. In the dragsters, the engines are behind them. And from what I read, it looked like he was on it and he was going, and the engine backfired. And when those turbochargers, those superchargers backfire, it's catastrophic. The engine is it's gone. And that big pressure boom, back in the day, used to just blow the whole body off the car. I remember watching, 5-6 years ago, John Force had a huge wreck where he was going and the supercharger blew and the body of the car went 75, 80 feet in the air. It was a big sail. Very dangerous. So now the designs, they're carbon fiber, and they're designed to just, when that happens, they're just designed to disintegrate. So that's another huge safety feature. I'm glad NHRA is kind of incorporated into the racing. But back to it, like I said, Camrie's teammate Dallas Green, 002 light, which is a blink of an eye. That's how fast he went from yellow light to green light. Super, super fast. Ended up winning the event, so that was really good. Top field dragsters, Justin Ashley, he qualified number 1 and actually took it all the way home this weekend, beating out Austin Prock. So he ended up taking home the Wally this weekend on the top fuel side. Funny car wise, Ron Capps and Matt Hagan, these two guys, it seems like 3 or 4 times a year these two guys go at it. And when they go at it, it's always, always, always a good race. They're neck and neck. It's guaranteed to be a fun race to watch. Matt Hagan pulled it out, got his second win of the year for Tony Stewart Racing. Ron Capps, they both had it. It was just a knockdown race. It was really a lot of fun to watch. It was a good session to watch. Terry Haddock, if you don't know, Terry used to be a racer back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. Full-time, just a great guy, great racer. He was well loved in the pits, and he actually came back this weekend to Funny Car and raced. Went out in round 2, but still had a great, actually went out and raced round 3. Went out in round 3, had a great weekend, and it was good to see him back at the track. Just an all-around great guy. He works his tail off. He does a lot behind the scenes. And it was really nice to see him out there this weekend. So that's pretty much all I got for NHRA this weekend. It was good. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yep. So anyway, looks like Camrie's internet connection went out again, but we do appreciate the time she was able to give to us. But again, you can follow her on, I believe, Facebook, Instagram. She on Twitter, Lee?
I don't know. I'm not on.
She probably is. Everybody is.
Person.
Yeah. So,
I'm not. I'm old, so I don't.
Yeah, me either. I don't. Yeah, I've got a Twitter. I don't get on there a lot. So, but she's also there's another Facebook page there where you can follow her. It's Caruso Family Motorsport page.
Yep.
So
and Caruso has a. They're also on Instagram as well. Caruso Motorsports Family has a Instagram page as well. So
All right. So yeah, so we wish her well in Vegas in
Yep.
a couple of weeks. And again, like she said, she's off to celebrate her dad's birthday. So happy birthday to Pops there.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Hope he's enjoying himself. So, but let's move from Pomona to Formula One in Australia. And let's talk about that a little bit, because we had a lot of different news stories coming out of there again. So obviously the Max won again. So Max is 2 for 3 on the year. Red Bull's 3 for 3 on the year. Perez problems in qualifying, ended up starting last. Didn't get out of FP1. I believe he made it up to 5th by the end of the race, but there were a couple of red flags and a couple of just
3 red
messy,
flags.
Yep, 3 red flags, just some messy restarts. And but again, the hero of the day again seemed to be Alonso, who's 3 podiums in a row. And this is from a couple of years ago. Aston Martin looked like they were fumbling, bumbling, but now they've kind of moved up in the world. They're consistently beating the Ferraris and Mercedes of the world. So Richard, take us through the Australian Grand Prix.
It was. I always have a sort of special place, for the Australian Grand Prix. It's one of those sort of classic races that's been around, pretty much since I've been watching the sport, since the early 2000s, or early 90s. And growing back over in the UK, it was one you'd always get up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to watch, and sneak downstairs and put the TV on and all that sort of stuff. But it was a very messy race, I think, in many, many ways. At the start, Lewis and George got past Max on the first lap, and Max was really, behind the 8 ball there a little bit for a while, and then Alex Albon, who had made a fantastic start to the race, great qualifying performance, getting the Williams into the top 10, and I think he was running like 6th or 7th, and he lost control on a high speed, I think turn 5, and there was some talk about a tire overheating issue, driver induced, so still a driver's fault. But he, bought out initially what was the safety car, and George Russell made the great call to pit under the safety car, which put him ahead of the cycle, and really put him in a very, very strong position. And then after a couple of laps, they red flagged the race, which was catastrophic for George Russell's strategy, because under red flag rules, everybody else can pit now. And have a free change of tyre, whereas George obviously has already made that call, which I think it was very, very unfair on that. And as a side note, I really do think they should change the rules there. Whereas if you have a safety car and then it turns into a red flag, your order should be set at the point where the safety car comes out, not allowing this change of strategy mid-race, especially when they're allowed to change tyres under a red flag. Now, I know why they're allowed to change tyres under a red flag, because the theory is there could, there's typically debris on the track, and there could be punctures and the like. So I totally agree with being allowed to change tyres under a red flag, but you make the strategy call under the safety car, and then that gets annulled, or worse, goes completely against your what you're trying to do. So I really felt for George, and I think that's something they need to look at in the future. But then beyond then, the race restarted. Max eventually got ahead of Lewis on the restart, because there was only one Mercedes ahead of Max there. So, there was no rear gunner, if you like, to protect the lead Mercedes, and they couldn't drag themselves along in a DRS chain, which is what they were doing up to that point. And Max just blew past Lewis. Then George suffered an engine failure, which brought out a virtual safety car. And then the race sort of settled down a little bit. Max pulled out a pretty comfortable lead. Towards the end of the race, I think he had a little moment in the penultimate corner there and ran wide and span a little bit, but it's just to keep it interesting more than anything. And then all hell broke loose towards the end of the race. Kevin Magnussen hit the wall. I think it was coming out of turn 2, which brought out another red flag, and unfortunately injured a spectator. Some of the carbon fiber shard flew over the catch fencing and cut a spectator on the arm, which is never a good thing. And then that all got a little bit messy. It was like 2 or 3 laps to go. And then on the restart, another red flag. So on the final restart, as what we thought was the final restart, we had another incident with the Alpines tripping over each other, and there was a Williams off and an Alpha Tauri span off somewhere, and Sainz spanned somebody as well. I mean, it got really messy, really, really messy. And
there were cars all over the place.
Yeah, and then they had like a 1-lap restart. So that was just the formation lap to the grid behind the safety car. It was just messy. And I think where this has really highlighted a problem isn't that there was a red flag. Throw a red flag, fine, I get it. Albert Park in Melbourne is a street circuit fundamentally. A few parts of it are permanent circuit road course, but there are the vast majority of the circuit is on public roads around the park there, and there's not much room for the marshals and the recovery workers to operate on. And when the debris gets on the track, it does take some cleaning up. So if you're going to throw a red flag, great, throw a red flag. Don't have a problem with that. But there needs to be the consistency there. There needs to be, this is the set of circumstances that demands a red flag. And this is, so everybody knows what's going on. Did they get a little bit ambitious with the red flags? Yeah, maybe. Was it deemed to try and manipulate the race? There's a little bit of that going on in the background, I think. A little people questioning it. But one thing as a side note, which really left a very bitter taste in my mouth, was some of the coverage from the Sky F1 crew. There's a British broadcaster. They've covered Formula One for a number of years now, and in the US and a lot of countries all around the world, they use that TV feed from Sky F1. And for a dozen years or so, the Sky F1 pit lane reporter has been a journalist called Ted Kravitz. Very, very well respected in the sport, very, very knowledgeable. He has a massive vendetta against Michael Massey post Abu Dhabi 2021. Everybody knows what happened there. Now, Michael Massey was back in the F1 paddock this weekend. He's an Australian native, and I think he works in the V8 Supercar Series now. But he was back at the Australian Grand Prix. And Ted Kravitz would not shut up about him being there. And of course, as soon as this, manipulation or controversy starts, he's yapping away. And actually, the other commentators, David Croft and Jensen Button, really sort of put him in his place a little bit and shut him down, which is great to see. But that really left a bitter taste in my mouth, and to my mind was very, very, very unprofessional. So we'll see where we go from there. But hopefully there won't be a repeat of that nonsense in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as Massey not even involved in the race there, why crap on the guy today just because you don't like him, right?
Yeah,
because he happens to be there, right? It's like, it's like when Tony George shows up at an IndyCar race this day and age. People, it's the same kind of thing. So now Formula One traditionally, right, does not finish under yellow, right? But they also, similar to IndyCar, they don't. They go the published race distance. They don't have any overtime. They won't add to the race distance. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
yes, correct. Yeah.
So
never overtime. Yeah.
Right. So which causes these late red flags occasionally, right? I mean, do you think personally that ending under caution every now and again would be acceptable, or?
I don't have a problem with it. That's one of the things I almost don't like about NASCAR in a way. NASCAR is really manipulating the result. Fundamentally, you have a race; it's a set distance, and the aim of the race.
Oh yes.
It's not like it's like you're trying to run like the New York Marathon or something at 26.2 miles, and because you're getting close at the finish, they add another 100 meters onto the end. It's like you can't keep doing that. It is what it is, and if that's the way the cookie crumbles, then that's the way it crumbles. Just it is what it is. And typically in Formula One and IndyCar, you don't get the driving standards, should we say, that you see in NASCAR towards the end of some of these races. I mean, if you look at Coda, people went to watch a demolition derby, and a NASCAR race broke out midway through. That was terrible to my mind, but. That racing breeds late race cautions and late race red flags.
Absolutely, yeah.
Late race caution. Kevin Magnussen didn't decide to liberate his right rear tire from the car because he was pushing. He was trying to he passed somebody on the last lap. It was just a driver error and a mechanical failure. So I think that there needs to be a consistent structure. Do you get rid of the safety car and just have a red flag and stop the race? Remove any concept of danger to the marshals, or God forbid, we all remember what tragically happened to Jules Bianchi. Do we remove those things from the table by saying, right, if there are track marshals if there are safety workers on the track, red flag, stop the race, restart from a standing start. Make that the rule, but don't. Now we've got local yellow, which never, if a car stopped on track, local yellow has never really come into play. Then we have virtual safety car, which is supposedly designed to equal up the field post that Monaco debacle a few years ago, whereby you slow the cars down to like 40% of their running speed. Now, 40% of a Formula One car is still pretty damn fast. You don't want to get in the way in one of them when they're doing that. So you've got your virtual safety car, then you've got your safety car, then you've got your red flag. Well, where did those limits come in, and where are they set? You look at what happened back in the Jeddah race, when Lance Stroll basically was like almost back in the garage, and they still threw a safety car. There's got to be some consistency there, and I think that's all people want. If they know that that's the way the sport works, that's the way it works.
Exactly. Yeah. So the other odd comment I read was, I think, something out of Lewis Hamilton's mouth, where he said it feels like that Red Bull is sandbagging to prevent a rule change. I'm like, so they've won all the races. Are they really sandbagging? You know what I mean? So
I think
how much faster would they be?
I must admit, I do think there is some performance and some pace still to be unlocked in that car,
which is scary for the rest of the field.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Ridiculous,
and especially considering that they had. Well, no, they didn't have the wind tunnel ban last year. They've got it this year coming in, haven't they? But I mean, that whole organization just looks so in control, and you've got to credit where credit's due. When Max had his issue in Jeddah, Sergio Perez stepped up and won the race. Perez had the issue in Melbourne this last week, and Max stepped up and won the race. That's where they've got to work together as a team. But there's certainly a huge we don't know what that car is capable of, because the Mercedes did pretty good in Melbourne, and they got a good start, and Max was on the back foot a little bit, but he'd have won that race. Aston Martins are giving them a bit of a push. On the day, Ferrari could get quite close to them, but they look pretty untouchable. And we said, I think I've said even just after the Bahrain Grand Prix, this could be a 1988 season with the McLaren. This could be the season when a team wins every race.
Oh, easily, easily.
It's the only time in my lifetime that I've ever seen a car this dominant, and then with this level of reliability. We all look back to the Williams of '92, the McLarens of the late '90s. What was it, '98, '99 with Hakkinen and Coulthard? Some of those Schumacher Ferraris in the early 2000s, and some of those Red Bull cars from like 2010 onwards. Very, very, very dominant cars, but reliability wasn't what it is now. The reliability of these cars is phenomenal, and partly that's because of stuff like the engine limits, and they can only run 3 engines a year or whatever it may be, or the gearbox or the electronics and stuff like that. So these things are designed to be reliable. Back in the 80s, you'd have qualifying engines and practice engines and race engines. So, the number of times
and usually you'd finish up missing about 25% of the field, drop out with mechanical. And then in the 70s, it might be closer to half the field. Can you imagine like if a guy like Jackie Stewart was running today with today's reliability, how many race wins he would have? Because back then you probably would have 4 or 5 DNFs and still win the championship. Now you miss a couple races, you're out of it.
Yeah, and also the packs are so much closer. I was looking at I got on looking at a race result from a race in the early '80s, and there's like 3 cars on the lead lap. And people complain that Formula One isn't close enough these days. People have very short memories.
Or people
Yeah.
people have a glorified look at the past. You know what I mean? And
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
you know, and I hear that a lot. That the racing is no good. I miss the old days with the old guys that said you miss Richard Petty having 3 laps ahead on the whole field. You know,
Yeah.
yes, you know, or they're the same thing in some of the Indy 500. So are we off next weekend in Formula One?
We're off for a couple of weekends. Canada was
Couple of
supposed to be.
weeks.
Sorry, not Canada. China was supposed to be in there, but
That's right. We're
that's
not
been
racing in
taken out. So
China.
our next
Yep.
race is actually in Baku, where I think we're going to have a new qualifying structure for a sprint race. I think there's going to be a sprint race in Baku, and there's still some negotiations, I think, going back and forth as to what the exact format of that sprint weekend is going to be. But yeah, the first sprint of 2023 will be taking place on the streets of Baku. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, where should we start? So about 3 weeks from now, then, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let me check. The 30th of April. So a
So
good
end of the
stretch.
month, right? End of the month.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Yeah.
all right. So let's move on. Let's talk about the IndyCar race in Texas. We had some a lot of concerns about how the cars were going to behave on the track, and most of those concerns were quelled by the time the racing started. The racing was actually quite good. They were able to run 2 lanes. They were able to run 3 and 4 wide at some points in time. So it looks like most of that PJ1 or resin or sticky stuff that they put on the track has worn off. They were able to do the additional test session to get some rubber onto the high line of the track after the truck race, and produced a really good race. And we saw a couple of guys, 3 guys in particular, which would be Pato, Alex Palou, and Newgarden. Just the 3 of those guys were hooked up. They all had very fast cars. And Pato at one point in time had lapped everybody up to 3rd place. His car was just on rails. It was like a rocket ship out there. But at the end of the day, on the last lap, or 2 laps to go, he had a quick yellow, and Joseph Newgarden happened to be up front. Grosjean decided to bounce off the wall right as Pato and Newgarden were swapping the lead back and forth in a thrilling battle that I would have loved to see to the end, that I think would have ended up in Pato's favor. I think Pato was a little quicker, but so Newgarden again, right place, right time in the lead when the yellow came out, and 2 laps to go, or a lap and a half to go. Not enough time to get the race restarted. So we ended just like that. Newgarden 2 in a row at Texas. But Lee, did you get a chance to watch?
I did.
I did. So what were your thoughts
Yep.
about the racing overall? I thought it was a pretty darn thrilling race, whereas
I did.
some of the more recent Texas races have been a little bit of follow the leader, one lane racetracks. I thought this was pretty edge of your seat stuff.
I did too. I thought it was good racing. I enjoyed the side by side aspect of it. Going into it, I did have concern. You talked about the sticky compound that's PJ1 or whatever they call it. Because leading up to it, there was a lot of talk that I read online and in the chats that, because NASCAR is there in the truck series, that compound, because from my understanding, the Indy tires and the NASCAR tires are just 2 totally different compounds. They're just night and day. One is, one's on rails. The other one is, might as well be on an ice rink. So I had some concerns going into that, but I thought, IndyCar did it, whether that compound had got run off of it. I thought it was a good race. I was kind of in the back of my head, I was rooting for last week's guest, Stingray Rob, and he went out early. So that kind of bummed me out, but I thought it was a really, really good race. There was a lot of side by side racing, some good passing. So it was a very entertaining race from what I saw.
Yeah, I thought it was quite good, and boy, the whole McLaren team looked hooked up. I mean, we had they qualified. I think it was second, fourth, sixth. So they're all kind of lined up on the one side of the track. All 3 of those cars. Felix Rosenqvist won the pole, but I mean, Pato actually did the best out of them. Finished second to Newgarden. He's the current points leader. But Rossi got himself in a situation on a pit stop where he was turning out and Kirkwood was turning in, and they ended up making contact on pit road.
Contact, yeah.
And Rossi needed, I think he lost 4 or 5 or 6 laps repairing the damage, and he goes back out. And they decided to penalize Rossi for unsafe release. And, that's really drew the ire of a lot of folks that really raised the eyebrows on that call. I mean, some felt that Kirkwood should have got the penalty. Rossi certainly felt that Kirkwood should have got the penalty, or nobody should have been penalized because, Kirkwood was doing what he's supposed to do. He was in the lane he was supposed to be in. So maybe it is an unsafe release on Rossi's part. But, in my mind, the fact that he's sitting there for 6 laps or for a couple of laps for repair, that's penalty enough. Why?
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Why add insult to injury there? But that raised a lot of questions about the officiating right there on that. So, but that was, again, it seemed like Rossi can't buy luck. Obviously McLaren's given him a very fast car, and I think there's likely some really good runs and in store for him this year, but he's still got the worst luck. If something's going to break on somebody's car, it's always his. If somebody's going to hit somebody else in pit lane, it's always him. Poor guy can't buy a break. Yeah.
No, he seems like he's I'm just saying this. Rossi seems like he's having a lot of Bubba Wallace this year, because Bubba's a talented race car driver.
Not just this year. This is for the past 3-4 years. Rossi. Yeah. I think he must have. Yep. I think he must have made an old gypsy woman angry, and she has put a hex on him.
I picked Rossi to win. I thought Rossi was going to do really good, and I was happy the first half of the race. And then when that pit incident happened, I was like,
wrecked his day. Wrecked his day. Yeah,
he was out. And then when you said they threw that penalty, I was all like, yeah, let's just kick him while he's down to add some insult to injury. But just like you said, I think if you had any luck at all, it'd all be bad.
I'll be bad. Yeah. So some of the things that teams I'm concerned about this year are number one, Rahal Letterman. They qualified in the last 3 positions. Graham's day ended up in the wall. He said his car was just diabolically handling. And it just blows my mind that, adding the 3rd car, having the new facility, they've got plenty of backers and sponsors that they just can't get this right.
But do you not think it's a similar situation that we've seen with Andretti over the last couple of years? That obviously as Andretti have been expanding into pretty much every form of motorsport going, and they've got new facilities going up. Their eyes being taken off the ball a little bit, and I think
but Andretti's never been this bad.
No, but RLL was never as good as Andretti. So,
okay, I'll give you that. Yeah. So,
but they have admitted that the Speedway package or the oval package has not been something they've concentrated on this year. I think they did say that they were concentrating more on the road courses and street circuits than they were the ovals, and it certainly showed.
Yeah, well, but the road course performance hasn't been much better. I mean, these are only the one race in the books, but so we'll have to see if their fortunes change. And the other team that surprised me was the Carpenter team. All 3 of them qualified well towards the back, and this is supposed to be, this is the oval racing aces, evidently, right? But yeah, so and
who's
Connor Daly
raced, didn't they? Who's the other 2 guys in the Carpenter car these days?
VK and Connor Daly.
Okay, yeah.
Connor Daly finished 4 laps down. VK had a better day, but he was never close to the front, never in the mix. He finished mid-pack somewhere. So yeah, just those 2 teams have been disappointing. Andretti has shown a lot of promise, but hasn't translated anything into results. Grosjean was right up there in the lead battle. I mean, that battle at the end of the race, you had 3, 4, 5, 6 guys that could have won that thing had it not been for Grosjean getting it sideways and ending it under caution. But Grosjean looked really racy on the oval. Car looked good. Car looked well balanced. He was right there in the mix. But I still think Pato Award looked best on the day. Of course,
Yeah.
Joseph Newgarden looked luckiest on the day, but Newgarden was right there in the mix all day, led a ton of laps as well. And we know Joseph knows his way around a racetrack. He's stacked up a lot of wins in his relatively short career. The guy's racked up a bunch of wins. He's 2 championships in the book. I mean, the only thing he really needs to kind of cap it off is get an Indy 500 win under his belt, and he'll be considered one of the legends of the sport. So, yeah, it's going to be a good championship battle this year. If we look at the running order, the points is currently Pato first, Ericsson second. I will say Newgarden third. So we got some other guys farther back than we'd expect who are going to start carving their way into that lead. And Dixon's right there in the mix too. I think he's 4th or 5th. So another guy to watch out for.
Where do IndyCar go to next?
We have the weekend off for Easter, and then we're at Long Beach, which is one of my favorite races coming up.
Yeah, the IMSA guys out there as well, aren't they?
Yep. The IMSA is going to share the bill with them, so I'm looking forward to that. But we'll preview that next week. So let's talk about. We got about 6 minutes left to talk about NASCAR. Where we're at Richmond, and once again, Ross Chastain in the news. Ross's new what's his new nickname? Wrecking Ball, or so. I don't know. But it was Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson winning at the end of the day. And nicely enough, he did a what you call the Polish victory lap, which is the backwards victory lap that was invented by the late Alan Kulwicki, who died on April 1st back in '93. So it's very close to the anniversary of Alan's passing. So as a nice tribute to Alan Kulwicki, Kyle Larson did the Polish victory lap.
And I think it was Ricky Hendricks, the anniversary of his death as well.
Yes.
Yep.
As well. That
and
was
Kyle,
also. But Rick Hendrick
and he ran his paint scheme.
Yep. Rick Hendrick didn't want to make a big deal about that in the media, he said, but it certainly was nice for that team to get that win in honor of Ricky as well. So, but do you know why Kulwicki invented the Polish victory lap?
So the fans could see him?
So he could wave to the fans instead of waving to the infield. Yep. He said his first race he won. He goes, this doesn't seem right. Let me try this. Whipped the car around. Went the other. Yeah. Good problem to have. Yeah. Win the race, want to wave to the fans. Yeah, that's a guy I had a lot of respect for. So, but So, I mean, overall, NASCAR race was pretty bland. Other than the couple of wrecks and whatnot there. Compared to what we saw in Formula One and Indy and even in NHRA, NASCAR.
That's a dark day when the NASCAR race is the most boring race of those 3, isn't it?
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's supposed to be Formula One. Lewis Hamilton lead every lap, you know, and NASCAR is supposed to have the 22 multiple overtime. So, but speaking of, races that are going to be crazy, Bristol Dirt coming up next on Easter. We hope.
The weather's not looking good this weekend.
So Bristol Mud. So Bristol Mud race. Yeah, do you remember when they tried to get the truck race going? And where it's pretty muddy, and then
2 inches of 2
inches of mud
of rain forecast, I think.
Right, and then everybody 1 lap into it, everyone had so much mud on the windshield, nobody could see a thing. This was a bad idea. So they had to call that race off. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know who to. I mean, if we get rained out, it'll probably push to Monday.
Monday looks clear, but there's supposed to be. Well, an inch of rain Friday and half an inch of rain Saturday. It's actually Sunday's not looking too bad for Bristol now, so we may squeeze it in. If they
it depends. It takes dirt a whole lot longer to dry than it does asphalt, Yeah. So, but again, so it could be the Bristol Mud Derby. It looked like, if you recall, Herbie the Love Bug movie. Mr. Thorndike with all the mud in his face.
There's a very famous video clip of the late great Murray Walker in the mid '80s commentating on a British grass mud race. Very cheap entry level versions of racing, and he's commenting on one of the drivers who's drilled holes in his windshield so he can see where he's going. So he's got clear vision, so the windshield doesn't get caked in mud. And no sooner those words come out of Murray's mouth that he loses control of the car and rolls it down an embankment. I mean, the timing was perfect. He can see where he's going, and he runs out of track.
He's going down the mountain.
course.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
all right,
So
Lee,
don't be drill holes in your windshield, please.
all right, Lee. Do you want to try to pick a winner for Bristol Dirt?
I'm gonna go with the Bush. I'm gonna go with
Kyle Busch. Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Kyle
I'm gonna
Busch
go
this weekend.
with Logano. You know, that guy, he just seemed to be lucky everywhere. So even at the hair club for men. So
Yeah.
good old Joey Logano and his new hair. So
Yeah.
all right. So yeah, we are out of time. I do want to thank Miss Camrie Caruso for coming on the show and joining us. Even though we had some technical difficulties, and I apologize to you folks who watch us, but I was glad that we were able to get her on for at least half a segment, and we're wishing her best of luck in her career. I want to thank you, Richard Lee. I want to thank my producer, Keith Hayes, and obviously Facebook Live, Google Podcasts, and iHeart Radio Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts for all carrying us. You can watch any reruns of our show on those outlets, including also Spotify, or on our Facebook page, or the Hoobazoo, hoobazoo.com website. But until next week, thank you folks that tuned in and watched tonight, and we'll see you in a week's time.
Have a good one.
Thanks for watching Drafting the Circuits. Make sure to follow Drafting the Circuits on Facebook, Spotify, Twitter, and YouTube. Drafting the Circuits is a Sinista1 production.